Did you know Mercury is in retrograde 4 times this year? The dates are shown on the screen. The last time Mercury had 4 retrograde appearances to the inhabitants of planet Earth was in the year 2017. And 2017 isn't interesting to me today because that's the year of a bear market that took the price of Bitcoin all the way down to $1,100. Welcome to Unusual Due Diligence. In today's special episode, we are taking a look at the influence of astrological phenomena of something called the Mercury retrograde. What is it and what does the data show? On the screen now are a list of columns. It's just a list I assembled, but let's break it down. At the very top, we have 3 buckets. First, we have astrological classification of the retrograde event. Second, we have the price action of Bitcoin as of the start of the retrograde event relative to price action of the prior day. This data, and this is important, I did not extend in this video the price change signal occurring within the retrograde cycle. Third, the last bucket here. This is the price action of Bitcoin relative to the prior day's price at the close of the retrograde period. Now, we have these 3 buckets and they are all astrological data from the retrograde cycle, the Bitcoin price relative to the prior trading day at the start of the cycle, and then the Bitcoin price relative to the prior day within that cycle at the close of the overall period. Once you do that, then you'll get the chart I have on the screen. First, I need to explain a couple of key parts of the retrograde cycle from the perspective of astrologers. This is not a deep dive on that topic specifically because you likely already have the basics. I suspect you already know that a retrograde is simply the illusion that a planetary body moving backwards in outer space relative to the viewer on Earth. And I suspect you know that the foundation of modern physics all originates from the idea that existence is predicated on 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water. And last, the astrological component of this is that there is a certain sign, like Gemini, Taurus the Bull, and so on, involved in the retrograde cycle. If there's interest, I can do a deep dive on astrology, which who knows, maybe I'll do that anyways. Let me know down in the comments. Quote, at this point, astrology sounds like more of a sure thing than all the other financial channels, so why not? End quote. Let's start with this one. What I'm showing on the screen is the sum of all changes across all of the years we tracked for the given element. What the price change is relative to the prior trading day as of the end of the retrograde cycle. Now, air is a very interesting element, especially when we consider the COVID pandemic. And then look at the years now that the air element was in effect. Just look at this chart. So what is this showing? Well, the chart itself is showing the count of the number of times the element entered the phase in the retrograde cycle in that calendar year. On the left, we have air, earth, fire, and then water. And then this top right, where the arrow is indicated, those are the years I'm tying to the cycle. Now, if you look right here, you'll see the air element was in phase during 2020 and 2021. Now, here's something else that's intriguing. Let's pull back on the screen, the elements, but take a look at the Bitcoin price action relative to both the start and the final date of the retrograde cycle. What does that look like? Well, it looks like this. Now, this chart has a bit more information on the screen. These 2 columns, identified on the screen here next to air, earth, fire, and water, these show the relative change of percent. I created what's called a computed column to answer the following question. Quote, I wonder what the price action difference was from the end of the period compared to the start. In theory, if the value is positive, then it means it was a bullish cycle, and then if it was negative, then it would be bearish, end quote. And I like this theory so much, I decided I'd color code the data for us today to really bring that forward. Anything with a negative number, colored red. And here's what the data shows. So this is pretty incredible. 2 elements clearly show a bullish cycle, and 2 other elements are clearly in a bear cycle. Let's keep going. Now that we know the bear cycle by element, let's ask this question. What cycle are we seeing with 2022? That's an obvious test of the veracity of this model. If you recall this chart that showed the elements arranged by year, then what we see here is that 2022 is in fact right in the middle of the earth element, which if you now compare the 2 charts on the screen, I'll allow you to draw your own conclusions. In another year, someone watching this video will know how all of this pans out. Now, we don't have all the other retrograde cycle data, but what I can tell you is the assigned sign 2022 is earth. While a lot of market pundits are calling for a bottom, if you follow the logic of this astrological sign chart, then you'd be left with the singular conclusion that the bottom is far from in. It doesn't look so good from an astrological perspective. The Earth sign continues all the way into 2023, so in a sense, I'd say be prudent and practical. The fire element returns to us in 2024, which, if the data all truly does track, would mean a solid rebound in this space. In this episode of Unusual Due Diligence, I used data to infer the astrological star chart of Bitcoin, and from that showed you a picture of how the year might unfold. I am your host, Poseidon, god of the sea, and whose spirit animates life me, the talking milkshake. From elements to astrological signs to tell the fate of Bitcoin. Make waves, my friends.